Welcome to Messy-nism, Understanding Moshiach, Episode 2. This week, we complete Rambam's minimalist and rationalist approach and contrast it with the geonim, who read much of the pesukim and midrashim literally. We look briefly at Rav Hasdai Crescas and take a detour to ponder the question, does Moshiach need to actually be anointed? Finally, we suss out whether ChatGPT holds like Rambam or like Rav Hai Gaon. Thanks so much for listening. Oh, lastly, if you enjoyed these shiurim, please help us spread the word by telling a few friends to tune in. Thanks.
All right, so the learning tonight should be a chos for Refuah Shlema for Shmuel Zunvil ben Shendel Hinda, Rafal Chaim Meir ben Simcha Chasha, and Bela Bas Chava. They should have a Refuah Shlema.
They should have a Refuah Shlema.
Amen. Okay, so when last we left our fearless heroes, we had completed the 11th chapter of the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, talking about the Yemot HaMashiach. What I'd like to do today is quickly cover the 12th chapter, contrast that with the geonim, and then we'll do a brief excursus into does Mashiach have to be anointed, and then we will get ChatGPT's version of Yemot HaMashiach. Okay, so says Rambam. This is Parak 12 Halacha Aleph. Al Yala Al Halev. Don't think in your heart. Should be Yemot HaMashiach Yibata. You know why they say think in your heart? Like historically in the ancient world, like before, I guess you can tell me if it was Galen or like whoever it was in the medical world, figured like your emotions and your thoughts, they thought all came from your heart. So right. there was a little disconnect. Okay, anyway. Al Yala Al Halev. Should be Yemot HaMashiach.
I think Lubavitch believes that's that.
Well. Should be Yemot HaMashiach Yibatel Davar Min Minhago Shel Olam. Don't think, this is Rambam being very explicit about his version of Yemot HaMashiach. There's not going to be any fireworks. There's not going to be any unicorns. The world will continue to operate in the way that it always had. Oh yeah, Sham Chidush B'Ma'aseh Bereshis, or that there will be something new that's never been before. Ella Olam K'min Hago Noheg. The world will continue operating the way the world has always operated. V'zeh Shnemar B'Yeshaya. But you're going to ask me about all these pesukim that we actually have examples for. Maybe we'll go through next time in Yeshaya and in all the various Nevi'im where they say V'gar Ze'evim Keves, that the wolf is going to lie with the lamb, not the lion with the lamb. The Nemer Im Gedi, your butts. All of that, says Rambam, is Mashal V'chida. All of that is metaphorical language. Inyan Hadavar, what does the metaphor mean? Shiyu Yisrael Yoshvim Livbetach, that the Jewish people will dwell securely in Rashe Akum, with the wicked nations, Hamoshlim Kizev V'nemer, that normally have acted like a wolf, like a leopard, etc. Shnamar Ze'ev Arbo Yishdam, so he's going to prove that nations are referred to as...
That can't be. The UN has that sign on it.
Yeah,
they keep on voting against Israel.
Exactly. V'yachzor kulam l'dasa emes, and they are all going to return to the truthful, we'll say, philosophy. So that's an interesting picture to kind of conjure up in your mind.
Truthful philosophy
being Judaism. They will acknowledge the truth of Judaism. V'lo yigazlu, v'lo yashchisu, and they're not going to steal anymore
what?
And destroy. What's that?
Being what?
That Judaism is the authentic, true religion, and that the Jewish God is the authentic, true God.
As opposed to all of their beliefs.
Correct. Right. And we saw last week that the Rambam believes that Christianity and Islam are there to pave the way, so at least you've got some version of monotheism or some idea of the Old Testament, as they would call it, and all of that. Maybe the Buddhists will have a harder time than the Christians or the Muslims.
The Shintoists, I feel sorry for.
Yeah. Ella yochlu davar hamutar benachas im Yisrael. They're going to keep kosher along with Yisrael. Shenamar v'aryeh kebakar yochel tevin, and the lion is going to eat straw like the cattle. V'chein kol kiyotze be'elu advarim be'inyan hamashiach hem mashalim, and then everything else you're going to read about the Yemos HaMashiach, those are all parables. The Yemos Melech HaMashiach yode l'chol le'eze davar hayamashal, and all of the pesukim in their metaphorical language will become apparent what the metaphor is referring to when Mashiach arrives. Ma inyan ramzu b'hem. Amru chachamim. The sages teach us Ein bein olam Ein bein olam hazeh limon hamashiach lashibu malchus bilvad. The only real change that we're going to experience in the Yemot HaMashiach is that the Jewish people will no longer be under the dominion of others. It appears from the simple reading of the Navi that at the beginning of the days of Mashiach there will be this war with the people who are called Gog, and they are from the land of Magog. It's a misconception that there's a war between Gog and Magog. Gog is the people who live in the land of Magog.
So they're going to have a civil war?
So they're going to have a war with probably Israel. The people of the land, the Gog nation, let's say Gog is the king of the nation, of the people who live in the land of Magog, whatever that means, are going to fight with the Jewish people.
Just one nation is going to fight.
So this is Rambam reading very very strictly literal interpretation of Yechezkel.
What does he say Gog is?
Gog is a people.
I understand that. Does he give an origin, or he doesn't define?
He doesn't. Yechezkel doesn't. We'll see the Gemara talks about in certain time periods this nation could have been Gog and Magog, and that person could have been Mashiach, etc. V'shekodem milchemes Gog and Magog yamod navi liyasher Yisrael ulahachin libam. And before that time, a navi is going to come, who's going to prepare the Jewish people and make their hearts ready for this whole experience. Right? But is he saying
Eliyahu Navi as in Eliyahu Navi, or is he saying Eliyahu Navi as a parable for a Navi?
So that's a great question, and the way I would read it is, if he wanted to say Eliyahu, he would just say Eliyahu will come. Don't say a Navi will come. He seems to be reading Eliyahu as a paradigm for a prophet that will come, not necessarily that it's actually.
And why are they using Eliyahu as the name? Why is Eliyahu the paradigm?
I don't know.
That's his job.
Announcing.
Right. It's a possible. So the question is, does it literally mean the same Eliyahu from Sefer Melachim, or does it mean a Navi like Eliyahu? Why is he coming? He's not coming to be Metamed the Tahar and to be Metahar the Tameh, and not to tell you who is of good lineage, who is of poor lineage. Ella lasum shalom ba'olam, to make peace in the world. Shenember v'heshiv levavos albanim.
Well, so the Navi's job is to make peace amongst the nations or Jews?
Also, fair question. From the way Rambam reads it, it sounds like to make peace among all people, not specifically to Jews.
So is he saying be making peace between Jews and Gog?
No. That war is going to take place separate and apart from what this Navi, we'll call him Eliyahu, is going to do.
Is this Navi a precursor or a post?
He has him as a precursor.
As a precursor, and he's making peace between everyone, but obviously not successful with Gog.
Correct.
So he's not really doing 100% there.
Also correct.
Everyone's a critic, huh?
Everybody's a critic.
He hasn't even started yet. Some people will say that there are chachamim that hold Eliyahu comes before Yemos HaMashiach v'chol elu advarim u'kiyotzu behem lo yeda adam eich yu ad shiyu. And all of these things is Rambam. I don't really know what I'm talking about because no one knows what they're talking about. No one will know until it happens. When it happens, it happens. Shedvarim stumim heim eitzal neviim. These things were already mysteries to the Nevi'im. Gama chachamim ein lahem kabbalah b'dvarim elu. Even the sages, the rabbis of the Gemara, did not have a fully clear received tradition about these matters. Elofi hechrach pesukim. They were darshaning the pesukim the same way anyone else is darshaning the pesukim. V'lufichach yesh lahem machlokas b'dvarim elu. That's how you could have a machlokas. Otherwise, if there's a Masorah, then there's a Masorah. V'al kol panim ein sidur havayas dvarim elu v'lo dikdukeim ikar bedas. Nevertheless, as the Rambam, none of this really matters. You don't have to know these things. Lolam lo yasuk adam b'divrei hagados, and don't spend too much time trying to delve into these stories. V'lo yarech b'midrashus hamuros b'inyanim elu ukiyot behem v'lo yasimem ikar, and don't try to make this the most important pillar of your connection to Judaism. It's not going to get you to the character traits, and this is Rambam Lishitaso. This is Rambam's approach all over the place. That the purpose of Yiddishkeit is to refine your mental faculties and your character traits in order to connect you to God.
It's interesting you say this because he was attacked for not believing this.
He was attacked for not believing in Tchias HaMesim.
Also Moshiach.
No.
I think so.
I think it was just Tchias HaMesim. He had to write a separate letter about Tchias HaMesim.
Moshiach also. I might be wrong, but I remember reading that he was attacked because he didn't believe in Mashiach, and he actually wrote that he did believe in Mashiach.
Right.
But here he's saying, don't even delve into it because it really doesn't matter.
Right. Right. It's not going to bring you to fear of God, to love of God. And also don't try to make calculations about when the end of times will be. Blasted be the bones of those who tried to calculate the end. That's what we saw in the 12th Yesod. Ella yechakav yamin b'chlal hadavar. Rather, you should hope and believe in the general principles of the matter. Moshe Biarnu, like we've already explained. Bimei melech hamashiach kashis yashiv malchuso yiviz kabsu alav kol Yisrael. So now, after telling you, you don't have to really delve into all this. We're going to delve into it. So in the times of Mashiach, kashis yashiv.
Doing this?
Okay, let's get through all of it, and
Because Jews are curious, and we're not going to let it go.
But he's
Because he knows that we're not going to let it go. He knows that it's just be like,
But
don't worry about it. It's fine. Okay, I don't know. Whenever I tell my kids, okay, don't worry about it. We're going to skip this. We're going to skip this topic for now. No, but really, seriously, why is it they won't let it go?
Right.
So the Rambam's just addressing his core audience. That's what I think.
So once King Moshiach is well established in his kingdom, and all the Jewish people have gathered together.
Which king Mashiach?
Which king? So Rambam only has one king Moshiach. He only has Mashiach ben David.
He does not have Mashiach ben Yosef.
He does not have any mention of Mashiach ben Yosef that I'm aware of. Yisyachasu kulam al piv beruach hakodesh shetanuach alav. So then he's going to establish their yichus, their lineage based on ruach hakodesh that will descend upon him. Shnemar v'yoshev mitzaref u'mitaher u'bnei Levi mitahar tchila.
So he's saying that ruach hakodesh will then be reestablished.
Yes, the Rambam also has different stages of prophecy. Ruach HaKodesh and Nevi'us are not the same thing. I believe in another place he talks about whether or not Mashiach is going to be a greater or lesser prophet than Moshe. So
But he's saying it's going to be reestablished.
yes. That's really his whole system, and it's true certainly about Rav Kook and many others that they believe either Ruach HaKodesh or Nevi'us is the prelude to Yemos HaMashiach, or is part and parcel of that period of time. So he's going to establish everybody's yichus v'docha she'ena miyuchasim liYisrael. Anybody who does not have an established yichus as being a Levi is going to be established as Yisrael. Harei hu omer v'yomer. Okay, fine. Hine lamada sheberuach hakodesh misyachas muchzakim umodim miyuchas ve'enu miyach. Okay, we're just going to skip all of this about who's a mamzer, etc. Lo nisavu chachamim v'hanavim yemos hamashiach lo kadei sheyilchshetu al kol ha'olam. So why is everybody so hopeful for this Yemos HaMashiach? If A, we don't really know what's going to happen, and B, the world's not really going to change according to Rambam, right? You're not going to have flying cars or whatever your picture is for Yemos HaMashiach. Nothing's going to change.
I would say the opposite. I'd say you could have flying cars.
Yeah.
Okay, you could have all these things. It's just that you don't have to worry that the bomb is going to go off and there's going to be a nuclear war you don't have to look over your shoulder and be like, hey, things could just end because people are behaving badly.
Yeah,
Okay.
Like, that's going to be, Canada's burning, right?
Right.
Like, that's not a thing you're going to have to worry about. That's a pretty big deal.
Right. You have to worry about AI taking over.
Right, you don't have to worry about the Terminators coming to murder us all. Like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
It is kind of
Right,
awesome.
because right now, we have to worry about Skynet.
Right.
Okay. We have to. That's still a thing in 2023.
Yeah, like an imminent thing. Yes, Steve, you were going to say something?
If the main difference is the no Shiva, that was a pretty big thing for people in Rambam's time. Right?
For
You
sure.
don't feel it
Oh
now so
yeah,
much.
being
Right,
under the
when you
thumb
talk
of whoever.
13th century, 12th century, 11th century.
Yeah, for sure.
Middle ages.
So, lo kadeshi yilshitu al kol olam. It's not that the Jews want to rule the world. V'lo kadeshi yardu ba'akum, and it's not that they want to oppress their oppressors. V'lo kadeshi nasuo sam ha'amim. V'lo kadei lechol v'lishtos v'lismoch. It's not that they want to marry into other nations or sit down and eat and drink and be merry. Ela kadeshi yu pnuyim b'torah v'chachmasa. Rather, they want to learn in kollel. They want to just be left alone to be able to learn Torah. And understand God's wisdom and connect to God. And they don't want anything that is impeding that and preventing them and dealing with their worldly concerns. All of that will be off their heads. So that they will merit to come to Olam Haba, like the Rambam explains in Hilchos Tshuva, which maybe we'll see next time. That time there will be no famine, there will be no war. There will be no jealousy. There's not. If you put it into like practical terms, I think the U.S. spends like $1 trillion on the military budget annually. Yeah. Imagine if that was unnecessary. What would you do with those funds?
Right.
You don't have to worry about war with another nation. You don't have to worry about blight and famine, and third world countries are able to feed the people that they need to feed without are sending aid and
warlords and all that
right.
stuff.
Shahatova tia mushpas harbet, that good is going to be prevalent. B'chol ha-ma'adanim mitzuim ka'afar, and all of the things that people enjoy are going to be like dust. It's going to be commonplace. V'lo esek kol ha'olam ela l'dasis Hashem bilvad, and people are just going to spend their whole time trying to understand God and connect to God and serve God. It's pretty awesome. When you say people,
are you talking only Jews?
No, so the Rambam seems to be very egalitarian here. Everybody. And in one of the shiurim I was listening to, he was talking about the interesting idea of there's 15 million Jews in the world, 20 million if you want to be generous. Imagine the line to bring korbanos if everybody wants to. Forget about Jews. Goyim are all going to be like, not just the evangelicals. Everyone is going to be lining up, right?
The
We've got to be, the Noahites, right. the everyites are,
right.
You're on the one hand, there's going to be an influx of people who want to participate, but on the other hand, what Rambam says over here, the entire Jewish nation is going to be viewed by the world as the people who got it and who can now teach it to them. Right?
And think of the real estate prices.
Quick, invest.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Right. Shinamar kimala aretz das es Hashem kamayim liyam mechasim. Okay, so that is the end of Mishnah Torah. Now, let's contrast that.
Is that the end of Mishnah Torah, or
yes.
just the chapter that we're reading?
No, that is the end of our chapter, the end of that sefer within Mishnah Torah, and the end of all of Mishnah Torah. I think there's 1,000 chapters in Mishnah Torah, so that is the end of the
Really?
Like, Rambam was very particular about his numbers. And okay, so the geonim. We're looking here between, let's say, the year 700 to the year 1000 approximately. We have responsum from the geonim, from Rav Hasdai Gaon and from Rav Hai Gaon, who were asked very explicitly, just tell us what's going to happen. What is going to happen when Moshiach comes? So they gave an answer, and what I'm going to read to you now is from Louis Jacobs.
Who we've seen before.
Louis Jacobs, who we've seen before for sure. Rabbi Louis Jacobs.
From the seminary.
From
the seminary.
From the UK seminary, not from JTS. This is Theology in Responsa, and we're going to start on page 22. He's just translating from Osar HaGaonim, which is the collection of responsa from the Geonim. Volume 6, which is Masechta Sukkah, pages 72 through 75, is the original Hebrew. So they ask very explicitly what's going to happen, and here we have Rav Hai Gaon's answer. First, Says Rav Hai Gaon, Mashiach ben Yosef, together with a number of his followers, will conquer Jerusalem, proclaim himself King of Israel. The majority.
Who first brings in the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef?
That's a Gemara in Sukkah.
So why did the Rambam not hold from it?
He holds it's an Agadata, and that there's no source for it in the Torah per se, so he's not beholden to take that Agadata literally. You're going to see a very, like, from one end of the spectrum to the other. The geonim are on the complete opposite end of the Rambam. Rambam is very, no miracles, no magic, no fairies. This is, and the geonim is the exact opposite. So
unicorns?
Unicorns. Mashiach ben Yosef, together with a number of his followers, will conquer Yerushalayim, proclaim himself King of Israel. So this is also interesting. Like, is he even allowed to proclaim himself King of Israel? We have a lot of pesukim that talk about the only king is supposed to come from Shevet Yehuda, and it wasn't such a great thing that the Maccabees aggregated the kingship to themselves. But you have here Mashiach ben Yosef now being Mashiach, like, not just in the anointed, borrowed sense, but in the actual kingly sense. The majority of Jews in the diaspora will remain unconvinced, however, that the end of days is nigh. When the nations of the world hear that the Jews now have a king, they will drive the Jews out of their cities, questioning the Jews' loyalty to their own realm now that they have a kingdom of their own. This is stuff we've seen many times. Many Jews will be compelled to flee for safety to the desert surrounding their former places of residence. They will dwell in tents and suffer severe deprivation. So great will be their suffering that many will abandon the Jewish faith. The anti-Mashiach. Has anyone heard of an anti-Mashiach before?
The Christians talk about him.
They talk about an antichrist, right?
But we don't.
The anti-Mashiach, Armilus, and we'll talk about where we get Armilus from. So full disclosure, Armilus is just sort of the Hebrewised version of Romulus, the founder of Rome. Will then attract a great following by means of the magical powers that are his, and he will succeed in his plan to murder Mashiach ben Yosef. We have the murder of Mashiach ben Yosef explicitly in the Gemara in Sukkah, because the whole reason Mashiach ben Yosef is brought up is they're talking about his mourning, his funeral. From this, further acts of apostasy will result. Only the most faithful Jews will remain loyal to Judaism. These will suffer the Chevle Mashiach, the birth pangs of the Messiah of which the rabbis speak, but they will cry out to Hashem in their trouble, and he will heed their cry. Eliyahu will then appear to the Jews in the desert. He will be followed by Mashiach ben David.
Are they talking about for actual Eliyahu?
Yes, actual Eliyahu will show up, and he will be followed by Mashiach ben David, who will then bring back from the dead Mashiach ben Yosef. So the first act of Tchias HaMesim, which, if you recall, the Rambam very sparingly just alluded to Tchias HaMesim in the Yemot HaMashiach. He doesn't pair the two together. Here you get very explicitly.
He's saying he's gonna the top hat, and here's the sheet, and
right. This resurrection will be the first of many miracles that Mashiach will perform. The Mashiach will then reign in Yerushalayim, where the Jews from the desert will come to live in safety and tranquility for many days, planting vineyards and building houses. But Gog, hearing of Mashiach's fame, will raise a mighty army for an attack on Yerushalayim. Gog and his army will be defeated, God visiting terrible calamities upon them. In order to appease Mashiach, the nations will bring gifts to Israel. All the Jews in the world will then come to Yerushalayim, some of them by miraculous means, until only the dead will remain behind in the diaspora. The great trumpets will then be sounded, and the dead will rise from their graves. At first, the risen dead will have the form that was theirs at the time of their death. Those who died as old men will rise again as old men. The cripples will rise as cripples. This will be for the purpose of establishing their identity with their previous existence. Afterwards, God will heal them, and they will all become young and whole in body. 7 shepherds will lead them: Adam, Shes, Meshushalach, Abraham, Yaakov, Moshe, and David. 8 princes will lead them: Yishai, Shaul, Shmuel, Amos, Tzafaniah, Chizkiyahu, Eliyahu, and Mashiach. These numbers and people are identified in the Gemara. Almost everything that they're citing over here, we can trace directly to either an Agadata or a midrash. Which of the dead will be resurrected at the time of Mashiach? Only those Jews who were either righteous all their lives or who repented of their sins before their death. The resurrected dead will be shown how to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. Others say, however, that the Beit HaMikdash will
descend from the sky.
Drop down complete from heaven. All Jews as well as their male and female slaves will then be prophets. All the nations still alive will be converted to Judaism and will go up to the house of Hashem for Kimitzion Teitze Torah Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. When these nations come to the Mashiach, he will order them to cease making war with one another. All the wild beasts will be banished from the Holy Land. For all people still alive when Mashiach comes, and who thus never suffered the death decreed for all mankind, will live onto a ripe old age, but will eventually die. No one will die young, however, in that blessed age. Death will ultimately be destroyed forever. Those who have died during the Messianic age will be resurrected to live forever in the world to come. The divine presence will come down to rest on the temple, appearing as a great column of fire, reaching from earth to heaven, so bright that the light of the sun and the moon will be dimmed. Not like heavens and earth will then appear as if they were new, as if the old heaven and earth had been utterly transformed. Okay, I think that kind of covers and he gets into a little bit more of the anti-Mashiach. But no, he doesn't go. So the Mamzer thing comes from the Gemara at the end of Kedushin that talks about who is miyuchas and who's not
people
miyuchas.
Who might have been engaged in funny business.
Right, correct. Now, just for the sake of completion in terms of the Middle Ages and who holds what, is anyone familiar with Rav Hasdai Crescas? Obscure. Shouldn't be as obscure as he is. We're going to unobscure him.
Hasdai Crescas? Nah.
Crescas.
Yeah. I think Crescas was Jewish.
You've been hiding you're hiding the book.
Okay, so we have here Refutation of Christian Principles, the actual name of the book is Or Yud Hey Vav and Hey.
When is this from?
So he is 1400s. He was a student of the Ran, Rabbeinu Nissen.
Wow.
He basically he's a Jewish philosopher, like a leader of the Jewish people at the time. He spends a lot of his time sort of upending Aristotelian philosophy. He argues that Mashiach is not an ikar of Emunah. He takes his ikarim only from explicit pesukim rather than from general principles of the fact that there's a prophecy that X, Y, or Z will happen. He argues that Mashiach will come, that it's an important thing to acknowledge that will happen, but that is not an ikar, that is not a foundational principle of Judaism. Ironically, the historians are trying, or have tried to portray him as following a false messiah by the name of Moses Botarel from Cisneros. I think that's pretty unlikely. His philosophical writings were eventually used, unfortunately, by Baruch Spinoza, and were kind of the seeds of Spinoza's philosophy and heretical thought. Yeah.
Where did he live?
Where did he live? I don't know. I want to say Spain?
Muslim Spain, it must be.
Was Spinoza the progenitor of, reform?
Him
and Mendelssohn?
Yeah, Spanish. See, they have him as Spanish Jewish philosopher. Yeah, Barcelona, Spain. Right. 2 points for the good old memory. Okay. We'll do a brief excursus into anointing. Here's the question. Did you hear from Rambam or from the geonim, or are you familiar with any other source that says that Moshiach will be anointed?
Just the name.
Sounds kind of important, right? If you're going to call him Moshiach, it's kind of important that you Moshiach him, right?
Yeah.
So I have to give a shout out to my son, Yosef Elio, who asked me this question explicitly, and I did not have a good answer. I tried to do some research into this. I'm kind of shocked at the lack of material that I was able to find. Maybe there's more that I wasn't able to find. There's a Yalkut Shimoni that mentions that Elio will come with or will uncover the anointing oil. So let's back up. There was oil that was created.
Was anointed.
Who was?
Charles.
Yes. You saw that link? Yeah, King Charles was anointed with oil that came from the Mount of Olives. That is not Shemen HaMishcha. Just any old olive oil that you get from Har HaZeisim doesn't make you Mashiach. Although I'm sure someone's making a good living trying to sell that. There's a whole process that has to be followed, and there are measurements of the different ingredients that go into it. There's actually, in the Gemara in Crescas, you get kares. Someone gets kares if they were to recreate the Shemen HaMishcha, because it is not permitted. So Moshe made the Shemen HaMishcha in order to anoint everything that was made in the Mishkan, made for the Mishkan, I should say. That Shemen HaMishcha perpetuated all throughout the Mishkan in Shiloh, throughout the Beis HaMikdash. to the best of my knowledge, they used that and only that. They didn't recreate the Shemana Mishcha every time. King Yoshiyahu buried a lot of things. He buried the Aron.
He hid it.
Right, and he hid the Shemana Mishcha. That's a Gemara in Croesus and 5b.
The Sefer for
Refuah.
Yeah, they praised him for that.
Right. Why did I think that was Chizkiyahu and not Yoshiyahu?
It might have been Chizkiyahu.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Either way.
3 things Chizkiyahu was praised, and 3 things Yoshiyahu. 3 things he was not.
He was
praised.
not. Yeah, they were not happy about the
no,
water.
It was Chizkiyahu. It wasn't Yoshiyahu.
Okay.
Yoshiyahu did a lot of good stuff. So.
Yes, Yoshiyahu was a great king. He hid a bunch of stuff because he saw the end was coming, and he didn't want it to fall into the hands of the non-Jews. Just a teaser for the next series, which will be hopefully Sefer Shmuel. We'll get the situation where the geonim actually do take the Aron.
Golden hemorrhoids.
Yeah. So the Gemara in Hurriya says, "Oso shemen kiyam lasid lavo shenemar shemen mishchat kodesh yeh zeli ladoro sechem." So the Gemara darshans a pasuk to tell you that the shemen mishcha that Yoshiyahu hid will in fact be used. Lasid lavo will be used in the times of Mashiach in order to anoint Mashiach. Now, I will present to you another possible approach, which is that maybe we don't need to anoint him. Someone can be referred to as Moshiach when they are not actually anointed. Certainly, we know.
A turn of phrase.
So we know that Cyrus was referred to as Mashiach Hashem. He was not anointed. Then we have a Rashi in Daniel. So
he might have been anointed. He wasn't anointed with oil.
Correct. So in Daniel chapter 9, pasuk 26, let me zoom over there. We get the following pasuk, and then I'll read you the Rashi on the pasuk. So this is part of the calculations of the end of days, and Daniel's talking about there's 62 weeks. The achar hashavuim shishim ushnayim. So after the 62-week period, which is part of the 70, yikares Mashiach v'einlo. Mashiach will, they have translated here yikares as disappear. Okay.
Cut off.
Yeah, something like that. He's out of the picture. V'einlo va'ir va'kodesh yashchis am nagid habav v'kitzo. So this is talking about Yerushalayim being destroyed. Okay. So Rashi, when the pasuk mentions Mashiach, says as follows: Mashiach eno elo lashon sar v'gadol. This term Mashiach can just refer to somebody who is a leader in a place of authority. So perhaps just in being established as Mashiach, meaning doing the things that qualify you to be Mashiach, which Rambam said you have to wage the wars of God and bring everybody back, etc., etc. Maybe if you do all those things, you are Mashiach by default because you've assumed the title and you are treated as King Mashiach. You don't need to be actually anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha. Just one other point, the Minchas Chinuch goes through this sugya in extensive detail in Mitzvah 107 and does not come out with any clear resolution. But if you want to see his sources, I have in the notes I can send you copy of what he goes through. So that is briefly anointing. Now ChatGPT. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT what is, according to Orthodox Judaism, what is going to happen when Mashiach comes. So here's what we've got back.
Did you write it as Mashiach or Messiah?
I think it was Mashiach.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean anything. They can come up with lots of garbage.
Yes, correct. The thing I was, I guess, most curious to see was, does ChatGPT hold like Rambam or hold like the geonim? The arrival of the Messiah. According to Jewish tradition, the Messiah will be a righteous descendant of King David who will come to redeem the Jewish people and bring about the final redemption. His arrival will be accompanied by great signs and wonders, and he will gather the Jewish exiles back to the land of Israel. Rambam. The rebuilding sounds a little bit Rambam-ish, we don't have Mashiach ben Yosef. We don't have Eliyahu so far. The rebuilding of the temple. Once the Messiah arrives, he will oversee the rebuilding of the temple in Yerushalayim. This will be a time of great joy and celebration, as the Jewish people will be able to offer sacrifices and perform other rituals in the temple once again. The resurrection of the dead. After the temple is rebuilt, the Messiah will bring about the resurrection of the dead. This will involve the physical reanimation of the bodies of deceased who will then live forever in the Messianic era.
Like
The final judgment. Once the dead have been resurrected, there will be a final judgment.
Sources?
No, well, at the end we get some sources, but not super helpful. The final judgment. Once the dead have been resurrected, there will be a final judgment in which God will judge all people and reward the righteous and punish the wicked. This judgment will be based on a person's deeds and the state of their souls at the time of their death. Geonim or Rambam?
Neither. We didn't hear about it from either one of them.
Second coming.
The judgment.
Yeah, the judgment didn't hear. The resurrection we heard a little bit from the Geonim will be based on their deeds.
Right.
The establishment of the Messianic era. Following this judgment, the righteous will enter into a new world of peace and harmony, where the lion will lie down with the lamb, and all nations will recognize the one true God. That is a misreading of the pesukim about the Ga'ar Ze'ev im Kavez, but it also sounds a little literalist.
Right?
Yeah, it's a wolf. And it's also very literalist. This will be a time of unprecedented spiritual and material prosperity, and the world will be filled with the knowledge of God. Sources for these beliefs can be found throughout Jewish texts, including Isaiah 11, Ezekiel 37, and Zechariah 14. Those are actually pretty decent sources. We will, I guess, next time go through
But
those.
the way he's reading it is more of a Christian belief.
Yeah. Because essentially what it's doing is just reading through any
The
text.
internet.
Right, and it. I don't know if it has a really good way to differentiate between like Messianic, Christian text and Orthodox or non-Orthodox Jewish.
Yeah.
Do I have it here? I have it later. I was going to read to you, but maybe we'll save it for next time. The Reform and Conservative platform as to what they believe will happen in the Moshiach, and then we will start to go through some of the pesukim themselves. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints?
That looks like an interesting book.
Yes.
Didn't talk about the second coming.
Didn't talk about the second. When we get to false messiahs, we'll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, you made it all the way through to the end of this year. Thank you. These series are a passion of mine, and a lot of effort goes into them. I'd be grateful for your help in spreading the awareness to others. If you're interested in joining us live, getting the notes, or asking a question, please message me on Twitter at Isaacson, ISAACSON. Thanks.